Give me a moment, would you, friend? I've never been on trial for my thoughts before.
Andrew Beckett is a brilliant lawyer, great lawyer.
Now let's see. Weight 105? Yeah, in your bra.
Your Honor, I object.
You would!
Bastard!
Hey! Quiet! You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
The question is, Frau Helm, were you lying then? Are you lying now? Or are you not, in fact, a chronic and habitual liar?
If I'd been anywhere other than in court, I would have said fucking.
Something really wrong is going on.
Mr. Kirkland, you are out of order!
You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order! They're out of order! That man! That's crazy!
On this channel I have made several videos looking at what the modern world has deemed problematic artists, including but not limited to Alec Baldwin, Kevin Spacey and John Landis. I do my research and try to present these cases as they played out, but for some reason every time I make one of these videos I get comments about how I shouldn't be defending these people and how the justice system is flawed.
Why did you kill that lady? You killed that lady and got no jail time? No jail time, Alec?
I am reminded of To Kill a Mockingbird. Before we go any further, I should say that this episode is full of spoilers. But, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird came out in 1962. If you've not seen it by now, you need to get your act together.
I'm simply defending a Negro, Tom Robinson.
The movie is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Harper Lee. It sees the Southern lawyer Atticus Finch defend a black man in a legal case that he is physically incapable of having committed. But the townsmen, who know Finch is a good man, and some of whom are personally indebted to him, have already decided that the defendant is guilty. When proof is presented that exonerates Tom Robinson, racial prejudice is at such a fever pitch in the community that he is found guilty by the all-white jury in spite of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
There's a scene in the movie, and it's in the book as well. It's the end of the trial, and the upper balcony, or what they called the colored section, where you had the black people weren't allowed to sit with the white people, they had to sit up there. And in this scene, Atticus puts his papers in his briefcase, and he turns around to leave, and he sees everyone in the colored section standing up. And it's a scene that always gave me goosebumps, that always made me tear up. But I thought about it this time around when I was just looking at the book a little more critical, and realized that that is probably the favorite scene of zero people who aren't white. And here's why. It's about to be a spoiler. I'm going to warn your viewers. Atticus loses the case. Those people in the balcony should be rioting in the streets. They should be chanting "No justice, no peace." They should be burning the courtroom down. But instead, they're standing up, docile, in respect and gratitude to the white liberal who just lost the case, by the way. And that's the liberal fantasy.
The film is excellent and has really stood the test of time. Despite not having any flashy direction or even a noteworthy script, it hangs almost entirely on the performances, which are note perfect.
Now the winner is Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird.
The novel was made into a Broadway show in 2019, the adaptation being written by West Wing writer Aaron Sorkin and starring Jeff Daniels as Atticus Finch.
This, To Kill a Mockingbird, the play, you feel it. And it's a mixed audience, but there's a lot of white people there. A lot of white liberal America, a lot of white America sitting out there. And this play is like a right hook to their chin. You watch the movie, you read the book, you feel the play. When Tom Robinson gets sent to jail, he's 100% innocent, and the only reason he's going to jail is because he's black. You see Tom Robinson chained up and walking across the stage on his way to the electric chair. And it's a long cross. You feel that.
At the end of the movie, Tom Robinson is found guilty and then murdered by a mob during his transfer to prison. If this story were set in present day, he would be found innocent and the mob would still murder him.
I get letters from school teachers. One boy wrote an answer to the question, what was your favorite scene? He said, oh, I like the scene where Bob Ewell spit in Atticus's face. Well, that got my attention, and I read on, and I realized that the boy really did get the point. Because Atticus had told his kids, look, I'm going to be doing something unpopular in this town. I'm defending a black man. He's innocent, but it's not going to be popular with a lot of people in this town. And you're going to be tormented in school. People are going to call you names, and maybe they'll start fights. But I don't want you to fight.
I don't care what the reasons are. I forbid you to fight.
This is something I have to do if I want to look myself in the face in the morning when I shave. So the boy said, well, that's why. He said Atticus could have clobbered Bob Ewell if he wanted to, but he was setting a good example for his kids.
I made a video about the Twilight Zone movie and the accident that happened on that set. It was barely up for a couple of days before someone commented that John Landis is a murderer and 100% responsible for 3 people's deaths, when no one has accused him of murder at any point, as that is the unlawful, premeditated killing of a human by another. As though John Landis had a plan to make a multi-million-dollar movie so he could hire 2 kids and a former TV star and then rig up some explosions that would cause a helicopter to fall on them. If his bloodlust was really that strong, he could have just gone on a shooting spree like any other wacko. He was tried for manslaughter and found not guilty, and there are many reasons why he wasn't found guilty. Ultimately, the investigation found that the explosion going off too early was the cause of the crash, not the helicopter flying lower. But either way, health and safety is not the job of the director on a Hollywood movie. There are people whose sole responsibility is to assess safety. You have stunt coordinators to tell you what is safe and what is not. The director's job is to ask for what is best for the film. If the helicopter pilot didn't feel safe flying lower, it's on him to say so. And you have to ask yourself, what is the average movie director supposed to know about flying? I'm going to assume nothing. But people believe this is John Landis's fault. Not even equal responsibility with the others he was tried with, his sole responsibility. And that's mainly because the 2 children that died were working after hours on this set illegally. Which, don't get me wrong, is really bad. But would this case have been less tragic if the scene was set during the daytime and the 2 children killed were working legally? I would say no. But again, people just conflate one event with the other, and that's just not how the legal system works.
I just think he's guilty. I thought it was obvious from the word go. I mean, nobody proved otherwise.
Nobody has to prove otherwise. The burden of proof's on the prosecution. The defendant doesn't even have to open his mouth.
If I were ever asked to illustrate the notion of the burden of proof, then it is this film I would use to demonstrate it. 12 Angry Men. It is set in a court deliberation room where a dozen jurors have to come to a verdict on a murder case. 11 men say guilty and 1 is not convinced. So over the course of an hour and a half, juror number 8 convinces the others, not that the defendant is innocent, but that they have a good enough reason to doubt the evidence presented to them not to convict.
You're not trying to tell us that we're supposed to believe his story, knowing what he is. I've lived among them all my life. You can't believe a word they say. You know that.
That's a terrible thing for a man to believe. Since when is dishonesty a group characteristic?
All right, it's not Sunday. We don't need a sermon.
But what this man says is very dangerous.
I don't see any need for arguing like this. I think we ought to be able to behave like gentlemen.
Right.
The movie originated as a television play on a show called Studio One, first broadcast live in 1954. The movie follows the original broadcast quite closely, but manages to increase the tension by making the set smaller as the story goes on, making a claustrophobic atmosphere.
Look, 11 men voted guilty. I just don't find it easy to raise my hand and send a boy to prison for life, or maybe even to be executed, without talking about it first.
In 1997, Exorcist director William Friedkin remade the film for television, now starring Jack Lemmon in the role of the dissenting juror and George C. Scott as his most steadfast opponent. In many ways, this version is superior to the original. The smaller characters are fleshed out more, and the prejudice towards the defendant is explored better. But this film is more likely to be remembered because when Jack Lemmon lost his Golden Globe nomination to Ving Rhames, Rames requested the actor join him on stage.
I feel that being an artist is about giving, and I'd like to give this to you, Mr. Jack Lemmon. Sure.
The TV movie, of course, does not achieve the classic status that the 57 movie does, mainly because of its television aesthetic. But it does bring up some interesting points. I was very much struck when one juror shouted this.
I'm telling you, man, the facts are being changed in here. Witnesses are being doubted, and there's no reason for it.
Witnesses can make mistakes.
Yeah, when you want them to, they do. You know what I mean?
The juror is angry because someone has changed their mind after considering the facts. This rage is very true to life. In fact, in present day, it is considered by many online circles to be a cardinal sin, when in real life, it's a moral virtue. If countering someone's argument with facts causes them to have an emotional meltdown, then what they believe is not based on facts. Now, I'd like to ask you, and please be honest with yourself, have you ever changed your mind on something because you just had to accept the facts? If the answer is no, then it stands to reason you believe some nonsense. I've certainly changed my mind, and it's the Kevin Spacey case which did it.
I imagine that many of you can understand that there's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today. But I would like to say that I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reached their decision.
I had heard rumours from a former staff member of the Old Vic, where Kevin Spacey was artistic director, that he was with a different man every night. This is long before he publicly came out as a homosexual, and for some reason that information stored in the back of my head. So when the allegations of him being predatory came to light, I said to myself, yeah, I bet he is. He was with a different guy every night when he worked at the Old Vic. And then I sat back and watched a 2-time Oscar winner's career go up in flames. This is why they say a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. I had conflated being libidinous with being predatory. Those two things are not synonyms. The actor Anthony Rapp made claims which were proved false in an American court. Boston anchorwoman Heather Unruh alleged Spacey assaulted her son. That case collapsed when it found that key evidence had been tampered with the prosecution pleading the fifth. And lastly, Kevin Spacey was charged in the UK Crown Prosecution Service with 3 complainants alleging assaults of a sexual nature. Kevin Spacey was found not guilty.
And that's all I have to say for the moment. Thank you very much.
Kevin Spacey, to date, has been exonerated in all court cases. So as of the time of recording, which is March 2025, he is an innocent man. And if this ignites some sort of anger in you, perhaps the problem is your epistemology. Immediately I can foresee comments below saying just because he wasn't found guilty doesn't mean he didn't do it. And to a degree those people are correct. It is easier for a guilty person to get off than it is to wrongfully convict someone who is innocent. That is why one has to be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt. But the importance of being presumed innocent until proven guilty cannot be understated. It's there so no one can say, yeah, they seem like the sort, and then they get locked up for being shifty. Because being shifty is not a crime. And if you look at the history of people who got arrested for similar matters, most of them didn't seem like the sort either. And that was precisely their cover. You simply cannot tell just by looking at someone. And what you might call a gut instinct is nothing more than guesswork. And that brings me to the last movie I wanted to talk about. Here is another reminder that spoilers are coming, so no complaining. This is one of my top 5 movies of all time, Orson Welles' noir thriller Touch of Evil. A bomb has gone off on the Texas-Mexico border. One cop from either side is investigating. The by-the-book Mexican Mike Vargas, played by Charlton Heston, and the rule-breaking American maverick Hank Quinlan, played by Orson Welles. Quinlan arrests a young man pretty quickly, but Vargas knows that Quinlan has planted evidence on him.
I've noticed over the years that people kind of avoid. They don't want to say, well, I didn't understand it,
Right.
but they go, oh, yeah, well, that was kind of like, was the kid involved in the original drug ring, or was the, you know, and now you can understand it, but really, in any event, the plot is just a clothesline anyway for these images and performances.
Yeah.
When the film was originally released, it was butchered by the studio, reordering and adding additional scenes. The director, Orson Welles, was so incensed with the changes that he wrote a 58-page memo to the head of production at Universal Pictures telling him how it should be edited. They ignored the letter and released the picture as they wanted. The film had its fans, but it didn't yield a significant financial return. And then sometime in the early 90s the memo resurfaced, and legendary film editor Walter Murch was given the task to re-edit the film to Orson Welles' wishes, as laid out in that memo, and the changes transformed the movie.
They didn't know they had Marlene Dietrich. She turned up in the rushes. They said, "That's Marlene Dietrich." And they called her up and said, "You're in this picture." And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, what's your salary?" And she says, "You don't put my name on the picture, it's the minimum. You put my name on, see my agent."
The reason this movie stuck with me, and the reason why it is still in my top 5 films of all time, is because of the ending, which is the same in both versions, so you can watch either one. After an hour and a half of these two sides warring, Vargas knowing that the boy has been stitched up by a crooked cop, the boy confesses. Quinlan has planted evidence on a guilty man.
There was no miss, Vargas. That was just to turn you around. I don't want to shoot you in the back.
This blew my mind. Had evidence not been planted on the boy, he probably would have gotten away with it. But what's more important? The method or results? I don't know.
The sheriff's department hasn't even released a report to the DA yet. The reason I wanted to sit down with you is because I really feel like I can't wait for that process to end in February, March. I mean, I'm not asking them to speed it up for my benefit. That's ridiculous. But I am saying that they're going to do what they need to do, and I wanted to come to talk to you to say that I would go to any lengths to undo what happened. I would go to any lengths to undo what happened.
The reason I made this video is because I'm quite honestly alarmed by the amount of people who do not believe in innocent until proven guilty. I urge you to try and imagine being accused of, or worse still, being put on trial for something you have not done. Would you want the world to look upon you as though you were guilty because of headlines and rumour? Would you want people to say, the fact that there's zero evidence doesn't mean they didn't do it? Or would you rather people said, let's see what happens at the trial and then we'll make our mind up? If it were not for the presumption of innocence, then we could all be arrested for thought crimes, and those thoughts are in someone else's head. If you enjoy this sort of content, please do let me know, because making YouTube videos often feels like shouting into a hole. If you really like my work, then you can send me the price of a cup of coffee via this website, which I've always pronounced Ko-Fi, but apparently is just pronounced coffee. It will help me make more stuff. There's a link in the description below. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.